Hello, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. This is our fourth episode, and it's a holiday one. The show might be a little bit more raw than our first ones because of the time of year it is, but we hope that it helps someone.
Absolutely.
And in a way, it still kind of helps us too.
It does.
So, I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation. We began this journey after losing my husband, Bobby, in April of 2016 to suicide. And my dear co-host, Bonnie, lost her her grandson and son. And so we started this journey together after we met each other a couple of years ago, and we want to bring this information to the public so that we can help those that are going through the same journey that we're going through, and maybe stop others from having to go through this. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. As Tammy said, I'm Bonnie Snyder, and it is my honor and privilege to co-host the show with Tammy. Like Tammy said, I lost my grandson, age 14, to suicide. And then 6 months later, my son, although it was his death was ruled an overdose. I'm not 100% convinced that it wasn't, there was some suicide going on. But like Tammy said, this is today this is a holiday, and so we want to begin the show by wishing everyone happy holidays. Regardless of how you celebrate it, whether it's Christmas, Kwanzaa, or Hanukkah. But we wish you the best. And the focus of today's episode is going to be on just that, the holidays, and how do you navigate the holidays when there's an empty chair at the table.
Right. Well, first, I want to let everybody know that there's a QR code at the bottom of the screen, and you can take a picture of that with your phone, and it will take you directly to one of our donation pages. We really need support so that we continue this programming to help others. As Bonnie said, this time of year is really hard because there's somebody missing, and though this is my fourth Christmas without my husband, it still seems like it's the first. Things really haven't changed much at all.
And I sit back and I wonder, how many times have you heard somebody say it gets easier with time, or it gets better with time, or next year it'll be different?
Yeah, people say that all the time.
Yeah.
But it really doesn't. This year I started when Bobby died. As I had mentioned before, my dad had passed away 5 weeks prior to, so I had made the decision to do my family is out west in Washington, and so I made the decision to every other year I'd be out west for Christmas, which last Christmas I was, and so this year is my Christmas to be with my Florida family, and of course we have COVID, and I can't be with all my Florida family as normal. Christmas Eve, we usually spend it with my nephew's family, and all of our family, comes together, but there's too many people in the house. Christmas Day, though, is fortunately with my sister-in-laws and my brother-in-law and my nephew. So at least we get to do that. But, it's even, I tried to, decorate for Christmas. I had all these really big plans of getting a tree. Of course, I have 4 cats, so I don't know if that was going to be wise or not. But we used to always tie the tree to the curtain rod anyway. Mm-hmm. But I did at least put lights up on the cottage, my business building, and that's good. I was going to try and do the house, but I'm going to be painting anyways and pressure washing over the holidays. So that kind of gave me a way out, you know.
That's been an interesting thing for me as far as decorating is concerned. This is, my second, Christmas without Aiden or Patrick. And, Kira and I, his mom and I talk, frequently. I mean, I talk to my son, as well. And I, keep forgetting I don't want to leave, Carl out of the equation.
Right.
But my conversations and bond with Kira is a little different. We're both moms to our respective sons. And, as I shared, she was the one who found Aiden. And so, chatting with her, before our show today about, the holidays, like, here we go again. And we both reflected on how difficult it was. Like last year, the first Christmas without Patrick, I was able to put up a tree, just the tree. I may have gotten like one string of lights on it, nothing else. No ornaments, no tinsel, no garland, nothing but the tree and the lights. And I'm like, is this what it's going to be like from now on? And I usually, decorate the outside of the house. Nothing. No lights, no bells, nothing. And, I'm like, wow. I mean, I wasn't feeling it. This year, I was actually able to put up a tree. I was able to get lights on it. It has the garland and the tinsel, and I'm like, the one thing I forgot, like the tree skirt. Last year, no tree skirt. Nothing. It was just this tree sitting in my living room bare. But this year, I broke out the tree skirt and everything, and I'm like, wow, I really did this. But I was also feeling guilty about putting up this tree.
Really?
Because I'm like, why do I have this tree up? Because like tree is here, and as I look up, on the pot shelf where his urn is, he's like looking at the tree.
Right.
And a part of me was like, are you okay with this? And, I know I said this, and it may sound like weird to some people, but there's a lot of times that I'll, be in the middle of doing, projects around the house. And this one, putting up this tree, I'd look up every once in a while, and I would swear I would see his shadow. And, I will go on record and say I believe that it's him. And I would like to believe that it was him saying, it's okay,
It's
Mom.
okay. Yeah. I'm
It's
sure he
okay.
was.
And, I also, this year, I've got lights on the house, although, I've decorated it differently than what it was when he was here. There were like certain set of, snowflake lights went here and point set of lights went here. And that's how it was the whole time, when he was,
Right,
when he was alive.
Right.
This year I did something completely different. I think there's one set of lights on one of the eaves of the house that's the same lights because that's where they belong. But other things are different. But it also, and after I posted that, several, my friends were posting their experiences with putting up trees after, losing their loved ones. Because when you think about this year, for us, I don't want to say it's a little different, but including not only people in our situations that have lost a loved one through, a suicide or, an overdose, but I also think of all of my friends who have lost, their children to, a disease. One friend, a girl I graduated high school with, lost her daughter to cancer. I want to say, if I remember correctly, like 2-3 months before I lost Patrick. And then, finding out, their school friends who, we bonded like, oh my gosh, we're in this Mothers Who've Lost Children, club. But my one friend, she told me how she gets through it is the first year after her daughter's name was Brooke, the first year after Brooke died, she put a tree that had little angels on it, and they called it, Brooke's angel tree. And the tree is in Brooke's bedroom. She was home, during the last months of her illness. So every year she puts this tree up, and it helps get her through it. Kira, when I was talking to her, she's like, putting up the trees really hard. And, she shared, some photos with me about the last Christmas that, she had with Aiden. And, again, looking at some of the traditions, like, how do you do the traditions knowing that that person isn't there? And then, of course, like you said, throw in, on top of everything else, COVID.
Right.
And, how many people have been lost during COVID?
Well, and that in itself has affected so many more people this year,
Absolutely.
Like I said, I mean, we had always, our tradition was to go, when my mother-in-law was alive, Christmas Eve was to go, to the family's house, and all the family would gather. And even at my mom's house out west, since my grandparents passed away, for the last 35 years, my mom has had all of our extended family that lives out in that area. Everyone gathers, like 35, 40 people at my mom's house, and she can't do that this year. And it's really been hard on her. She still has a house full of people because my sister's family's living with her, but it's been really emotionally hard for her to not be able to have the family there, because even the year that Bobby and my dad passed away, she still did it, and that's her thing. And even after my mother-in-law passed away, my nephew, his family took over our Christmas Eves. And the last 5 years of Bobby's life, Christmas was really difficult for him because my mother-in-law's birthday is Christmas Day. And so since she's been gone, that's been, hard on, the siblings. Bobby has 2 sisters and a brother. And so the last 5 years of his life, looking back, I always tried to make Christmas happy. Because, actually 33 years ago, I lost my first husband in December.
Okay.
December 3rd, to a tragic work accident. And that was the first Christmas ever that it just wasn't a Christmas.
Right.
My grandma came to stay with me. Christmas just was not celebrated. But after that, when Bobby and I got together, to me it was just really important to make that celebration, throughout, the next 33 years. And even when it got hard for him, when my mother-in-law passed away, but, the last Christmas that he was here, he didn't even go to Christmas Eve with our family. I went by myself, not seeing what was about to take place in the spring.
Right.
And so now this is the first year that I did decorate the house the first year because my nephew's family had just moved into a new house like 2 weeks prior to, and we weren't going to have Christmas. And I was like, no, we can't. We have to have Christmas somehow, because it was the first Christmas without Bobby. And I didn't decorate on the outside of the house. Basically all I did is I put up a tree so everything looked nice when the family was there. And then the following year I went out west, so I didn't decorate at all. And then I was here and I didn't decorate. Last year I went out west. I didn't decorate. And this year I like I said, I've tried a little bit more. Basically in the house because I haven't got a tree yet, and I probably won't. I had big plans of getting a tree and doing all the decorations, doing like what I used to do, and but I haven't. I did decorate. My most decorations is our fake fireplace that's in the front living room, which is now the foundation office. I do have our stockings up, and I have Bobby's stocking up, and that's decorated Christmassy. And I feel that I've done pretty good considering. No, I mean, it's a push, but it's more than what I've been able to do in the past.
And I think it's important to note that the holidays are stressful on individuals. Even people not being in our situation.
Oh, just normally, yeah.
Yeah, but when I think about it from a mental health, perspective, like I said, the holidays being rough, and you add on top of that, again, the stressors of COVID, people are, financially stressed, the prospect of not being able to spend it with family. I think it's important to recognize, that, the ability, the importance of creating some kind of normalcy in a world that, for lack of a better way to put it, is not so normal. It's not so normal right now. And so for me, what I found, in putting up the tree and doing the decorations was, one thing that we talk about a lot with people is being able to, or remembering to take care of yourself. And as I'm, it's funny because I'm literally on the roof of my house, clipping lights up, and I'm clipping lights where I'd normally, and I have like a double eave, so I'd never really put lights on, the top eave. It's just been, the one around the garage and whatnot. But anyway, as I'm walking around the roof, clipping up these lights, it was strangely cathartic. I was like, okay, I'm going to put this here. And, I want to say I mentally zoned out for a moment. And for a brief second. And again, it's when these times happen that, I get, when I come back to myself, I get, like I feel guilty in a sense. But for a brief second, I was able to just go like, ooh, let's, just think about how nice this is going to look when it's all up.
Well, and it's an accomplishment when things are hard anyway. I know exactly what you're talking about, but in a different way. We have a big piece of property and a lot of trees, and Bobby always did the outside of the house. Well, we've got trees all over, like the roof of our house, and so he would always get up on the roof and blow the leaves off the roof. Well, I have to do that now, and you have to do it several times a year. And when I get up there, and I'm really careful because I broke my leg the first year, so I have to be really careful going up on the ladder, hauling up the blower. And when I'm up there doing what he really should be doing, it's weird. I feel, it's like you said, it's almost euphoric. It's and when it's done, before I get down, usually I just kind of sit there for a moment, and it's like, wow, I did it again. And it looks so good, and it's going to be good for our roof, but it's getting to that point of even just doing those things, and which is difficult in itself. But once you do it and you push through it, it's like, whoa, kind of what just happened, and it gives you a sense of satisfaction and relief, and oh, he'd be so proud of me, look what I did, and I talk to him all the time. I mean, seriously, and when I'm up there, I'm like, okay, did I do a good job? What do you think? I did it, and people might, some people, not all, might think, oh, that's crazy, but I do. It's just, it makes me feel good.
And I think it's another one of those things that we do to help us feel connected. Like I try to do things that, if Pat were here, this is what I'd be doing. I was, finishing up Christmas shopping yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be like one of the first years that I've actually finished before Christmas Day. I mean, usually I'm like, today is like, doing the mad rush to finish everything. But, Patrick's nickname was, I called him my little monkey. And so whenever I find something that is monkey themed, or I would, purchase it. But I happened to walk into, one of the stores last night, and just as I walked through the door, there was this display of stuffed animals. And second shelf down, it's a bunch of monkeys. And I'm looking at this monkey, and I'm like, okay. Okay. Is this coincidence or what? Of course, I bought one of the monkeys.
Of course.
Of course I bought one, but I was like, wow. And I tell myself, okay, so for the next however long I'm here, I will have this collection of monkeys, and it's just like he's here. But then, I think to myself, I can pass them down, to Devin. And, hopefully, one day, the gods are kind. His siblings, Patrick's, 2 younger children, to be able to, you get this set of monkeys, you get this set of monkeys, memory of your dad.
And understand the meaning of them.
Exactly.
Well, it's like, sometimes when I'm out in the yard and I'm doing something, or I've just completed something, and it just happened just the other day, and I don't remember what I did, but our symbol for Bobby is a hawk. And hawks show up not only for me, but my sister-in-laws at the most unusual times. And but the other day I just completed doing something out in the yard, and I've been doing a lot of work on the cottage where I run my business out of, and I just finished doing something, and all of a sudden a hawk flies just right over me, squawking, and I was like, oh, I guess you approve, huh? That's cool.
Exactly.
So, things like that really, really help. And especially during this time of year, it's because we all feel such a big loss. Yeah, that's one of our first Christmases. That's even before we were married.
That's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, we in the beginning, we took a lot of pictures in the beginning. As we got older, we didn't take as many pictures, which I'm really kind of sad about. That's Bobby. There's a tree farm up San Antonio. I think it's north of San Antonio, Earl Tree Farm, and we'd go up and cut our own Christmas trees. That's when we first moved here.
Oh, nice.
30 years ago. I think that was the first Christmas we were here, 30 years ago. And it doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier.
I think, I'm going to agree, it doesn't get easier. What happens is we learn to navigate
Right.
through, the difference or the new normal.
Right.
Or this new, I'm going to call it the newness. I still, there are times where, I walk past, Pat's bedroom and, oh wait, it's like you, I would talk to him, hey, what do you think about this? I think about, celebrating, celebrating Christmas, and thinking of the grandchildren, and, people ask me, how many grandchildren do you have? And, it's, I don't want to say it's weird.
Well, because you have such a big extended family.
But it's interesting, because it's weird that I've gone from saying I have, wait for it, folks, 22 grandchildren, But then, I found myself saying 21 of which who are living, or one is not with us anymore. Or, I lost, one of them.
Right.
And why?
Yeah, that would be kind of a hard way to figure out how to answer that question.
Why? Oh, it's the same thing like when
But it's
people
like-
ask me, how many children do I have? And I said, well, I
Right.
have 3. And then, to follow up that, well, I have 3, but I lost my youngest a year and a half ago.
Right.
Or my youngest son passed away a year and a half ago. Just to get those words out is like,
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that part of it. Because we never had kids. So it, for 30 years it was 2 of us. And not for lack of trying, it just wasn't in the cards. But and then now, because I kind of like decided about when I was 40 that if we didn't have children by then, it's like I'm not going to do this when I'm old. and I've had people ask me about that too. And in a way now, I'm kind of glad we didn't have children, because I wouldn't want them have to go through what we're going through.
It's interesting. I was going to ask you, what do you think, and if so, what would be different if you and Bobby had children?
Like my mom has mentioned, she says, but at least you'd have somebody else to go through it with you. I'm like, yeah, but I wouldn't want my children to live with that. That their dad had taken their life. I know people whose parents have taken their lives. Kim, our guest last week. Granted, she was older, but I also know people that have lost a parent when they were young. So, a few people since this journey began. A couple have been, really young. One was she was a teenager when she lost her mom, and just knowing, what I have to deal with losing, the love of my life and living with the not knowing why the rest of my life, I just couldn't imagine having our kids have to go through that either. It might be selfish on my part that I'd rather it just be me, and not have to I wouldn't want that burden on our children.
I'm not going to call it selfish. I don't see it as selfish. In our family, some of the things I think about is, I wonder, like with Aiden, who would Aiden have married?
Mm-hmm.
So I picture, him getting married one day. I picture, and I'm thinking, he will never, there will never be, he will never have children.
He didn't, go to the prom, graduating. And
Exactly, but when you speak of, the children that are left behind, I think of Devin, my grandson.
Mm-hmm.
And, to key on for a moment the word selfish, I envisioned at this part, this time in my life that I would be, Nana, and I think of, sitting in a rocking chair.
the typical granny in a rocking chair.
Sipping on, a Coke or, a juice or something, and, watching the kids run around and then sending them back off to their parents. Or, Nana sleepovers, which still happen at my, I'm going to have, Nana sleepover for the for the holidays. But I think about Devin, I'm now a parent again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm raising, my grandson. Now, mind you, I, help my daughter. Let me correct that. My daughter and I, are now, raising him. My daughter has, 7 children of her own, and now an 8th, with Deb.
Mm-hmm.
He will not talk about his dad. He, and we talked briefly. And there were some periods of time where he's never really been at behavior issues, any behavior issues in school. But we were getting phone calls. There's something amiss. His teacher did not know that he lost his dad, and we found out that there were some kids that were picking. You lost your dad. Your dad. Your dad's gone.
Kids can be so cruel.
It was. And the teacher, it's like, I didn't know this. But, so I spoke to him for a bit, and I was like, do you want to talk to somebody? And he said no. And I had this feeling, like, because it was so reminiscent of his father. Let me get you somebody to talk to. No.
Yeah. I remember that conversation you said. Yeah.
Okay. But then he said, talking, to whether it's me or to my daughter, or to a family member, he's fine with that. He just strangers and other people he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to process that with. But for him, I think of, especially here we are in the holidays, he and I would have been out shopping for his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's like, but I remember asking him, what do you want for Christmas, Deb? And one of the things he said, I want long socks. I want long socks. His father I have this sock collection in my house for Patrick. Roughly 200 pairs of socks, or better, and probably more than that. Yeah, but it's always these novelty themed socks. Right. And, again, I'm thinking, about, how to get through the holidays with him being gone. And, to have Deb say, I want long socks. I look up and I was like, you're still here.
Mm-hmm.
You are, he's yours. You are definitely your father's son.
Was he with you last Christmas?
Devin?
Devin, yeah.
Yes. Well, he spends the majority of time now with my daughter. He wanted to be surrounded by his cousins.
Mm-hmm.
At home he's an only child. It's just
right.
him and I.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, especially this time of year.
But he told me he's a middle schooler next year. Yeah, middle schooler.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming back home. I'm gonna do middle school. Back home because I can babysit myself then. And, I chuckle. I'm like, okay, okay, go babysit yourself then. But yeah, I think about, not only, getting myself and, the family through the holiday, but getting him through the holiday. But then it's also, again, his siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I would, we'd be buying stuff for them and sending them off, but that's just not possible, now.
Yeah, well, like I had mentioned, my husband has 2 sisters and an older brother, and, everybody has dealt with and processed the situation so differently.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's again, it's, doubly hard for them because, like I said, Mom's birthday is Christmas Day, and not having Bobby around, there's, it's a double whammy, big hole, and, yeah, it's tough. Yeah, everybody deals with it differently.
It brings me back to, one of the bullet points in the
Yeah, our
purple
purple
folder, where it talks about, understand that, emotions or your feelings, may sometimes, feel overwhelmed, but recognize that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. One of them is, especially under our healing and finding your new normal, know that you will never be the same again. You will survive through the grief, and healing will emerge a new normal.
Mm-hmm.
And two, there is one that, I don't know if it's on this one or, yeah, you have the suggestions for survivors. Um, everybody grieves differently,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to. I don't know. It's kind of hard to hold that on to that thought and understand that, even within immediate family members, we're all going to handle the grieving process different. My brother-in-law handles it way different than the two sisters.
Mm-hmm.
My two sister-in-laws, they each handle it differently also. And of course, it's different for me because I lived with him for 30 years, But yeah, it's and sometimes it's hard for me to, and I've got to tell myself, they're going to grieve different than I grieve, and the three of them are all going to grieve differently, and we have to be aware of that and be understanding,
And, it makes me think of, like, one of our bullet points that says you may feel guilty for what you think you did or did not do. And I know, I processed that particular bullet point on two different levels. Level one being, this person is not with us anymore for the reasons that they're not with us. They died by suicide. It was, and that was their choice. And I think we both shared, what if, the coulda, the shoulda, the wouldas, which, we say all the time, extinguish the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. It's not going to change anything.
But it's hard to get rid of.
But they happen because I was going back to that's normal.
Yeah.
But, especially like during the holidays, I think about this, guilt about what you did and did not do. Because when I find myself sometimes, and not just me, but, to personalize it for a moment, like, for instance, it's Christmas, and, putting up, decorations and, feeling good because, the house is decorated and,
And you accomplish something and it makes you feel good and it looks good.
And it's celebrating the season,
Right.
but then that guilt creeps in. How dare you celebrate? And they're not here. How dare you feel happy when they're not here to share the happiness with you?
But they want us to be happy. They don't want us to, I've always said, they didn't do what they did to hurt us.
Right.
And that's really hard for most people to process because it does hurt us tremendously, but it wasn't intentionally done for that.
Yeah, I don't think, I shouldn't say I don't think for a moment. I do process, sometimes. What was Aiden thinking? And not in that negative sense, like
Right.
we as parents would do. What are you thinking when you did that?
Right.
Not that, but as I sit back and I think about Aiden, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind
at that time
when you were in the closet? Or, when I think of Patrick, what was going through your mind as you were lying on, the floor of your friend's bedroom? Like, what was the last thing that went through your mind before, you were, before you were gone? Like, what were you thinking? And, as it relates to this, guilt, Jude and didn't do. Um, that's another piece of that guilt. It's like um, Aiden was alone in a closet. And at the same time, not alone, because his mother and Nick, her husband, was right around the corner in their bedroom. His sister was around the corner in her bedroom. His brothers, his two brothers, were in their bedroom. So he's in a house
Full
of people who love him,
Right.
still love him, and are struggling today without him. What's going through your mind? With Patrick, I think, I found myself, if I had not gone to New Jersey,
Oh, I do that. If why did I have to go run those errands?
Right.
Just for a 2-hour period. And one of the errands was a surprise for him. Yeah. It's something that, I think it's because of not knowing and not having any notes, the acts were just done. That it's something that we live with for the rest of our lives, the not knowing why.
Right.
What was, like you said, what was going through your mind at that time?
And while you're processing what was going through your mind that same time, as we think about that grief cycle, I find myself conscious, I guess, and cautious at the same time of what that anger phase looks like for me. Because I teach an anger, teach and have taught an anger management, group. And I have no problem disclosing to my group I have a stupid temper. It's ridiculous. But at the same time, I have learned how to temper that temper. I always wondered, growing up, I have a billion nicknames, but one of my nicknames is Snapper. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out why in the world did my father nickname me Snapper, like where did it come from? And my oldest sister looked at me and she says, because you have a temper. And I'm thinking, I'm the most docile person that you know.
I wouldn't have imagined that.
I would not have guessed that. But then she says, oh no, you used to, you have a temper. Or, you had a temper, as a child. And of course, I blocked that one out. But, in knowing that and recognizing it, it's like, what does anger look, And so sometimes, again, thinking about it, this is Christmas, I celebrate Christmas. Not to be disrespectful to, my friends and colleagues and, people who don't celebrate Christmas, but.
Well, they have their other celebrations.
Exactly, personally, I celebrate, but it's like feeling guilty about celebrating Christmas, but then being angry, like,
you're supposed to be here.
Like, how could you do this?
Right.
But then, dialing it back and saying, okay, wait a minute. But then, getting, wondering, am I going to get angry with people because, it's like, move on, get over it. No.
It's not going to happen. Get used to it because it's not going to happen.
It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. But, I think it's, in recognizing, as we talked, in our last, few episodes, that cycle looks different for everybody. And that it is very possible to go from here to here, or you can, end up way up, in acceptance, which is that last stage, and come right back around to, is this really happening?
Right.
It's important to, to point out, stay connected to your support systems. Stay connected to, the people that you have in your life that get you through. one thing that I could say about COVID, I'm blessed that this thing called Zoom, so
Oh,
I
yeah.
never Zoomed before, but being able to Zoom, with families and with family and friends, I thank God for text messages, because there are times where, Kira and I are swapping text
Right.
messages back and forth on a constant basis, thank you for being there for me. No, thank you for being there for me, and
Right.
vice versa. Um, being given this platform, like you, I'm sure, we hope that this would, be a tremendous support for people to see that, this is normal. I mean,
Well, and it's come really at a good time because of so many people being isolated, and it's a hard time for people normally, like we said before, but being given this opportunity to bring information to people, just to know that they're not alone, during times like this. There's other people, and like you said, friends and family, but make sure it's supportive people, because we all have people in our lives that aren't so supportive, and though you have to be very, very careful about that, because it's an emotional time of year, extra emotional because of what our country is going through with COVID, and things aren't going to be better like immediately. We're hoping that by spring or summer, but we still got a long ways to go, and it's going to be still hard for a lot of people. We're not going to know until probably the end of next year how COVID has affected the suicide rate. I personally have spoken to several people that have lost people this year, that they directly contribute to COVID, and the circumstances that people are in with isolation. And it's not, again, it follows the same natural laws, I guess, for the lack of a better term. Doesn't discriminate.
right.
It's still not discriminating.
Right.
So everybody really needs to really be supportive. I'm fortunate. I mean, even if I don't talk to anybody during the day, my neighbor and I always talk, at least once a day. And I was talking to her the other day about the show, and a few people had mentioned, "Oh, I watched your guys' program. It's really great." And my neighbor was like, "I watched the first one." And she goes, "I was really, committed." And I was like, "Kathy, you live this with me every single day. I don't expect you to watch it. I'd be grateful if you did, but
Right.
you're not going to learn anything new because you already know it, And I'm really, super, super lucky that way to have such a great neighbor that always checks in on me, And even, when anniversary days come up, she'll call me and say, "Okay, wellness check, how you doing?" But yeah, it's super, super important for everybody, and especially, like I said, this time of year, and other people that normally don't need that, that we really need. People are feeling it. They are. They're going through a different kind of grief, but it's real, and everybody needs to be very cognitive and very aware of that.
And I think it's equally important to, recognize that sometimes when people are being supportive, they're coming with the best intentions, and we don't always take it that way.
Right. That is true.
I often would tell, people that I'm working with, to sometimes practice paying less attention to how the words are being said and more what is being said, and not just the literal, words that are coming out of a person's mouth, but what is the actual meaning behind what they're saying. Again, we talked about, people, saying it will get better, and in our brains we're processing, no, it's not.
No, it will not.
At the same time, it's like, okay, one side of me might say, do you realize how stupid that sounds? I shouldn't say the word stupid, but, do you realize how ridiculous
we can say that in our heads.
Right, but then I find myself saying, okay, I understand, what they're saying, because you don't know. And like for me, I sat back and I thought to myself, some of the things that I was hearing after Patrick, and I'm like, that is the dumbest thing I ever heard. But then I had to take a step back. Wait a minute, you were just saying some of these same things 6 months ago to Kira. And I was like, wow. And, we're able to laugh about it, through our tears and whatnot. We were laughing about it. I was like, do you remember when I said this to you? I thought that was so stupid. I was like, I'm sorry, I apologize. But, we, again, having that ability to recognize that, oftentimes there aren't the right words.
There's not, and you can't worry about that.
Correct.
You really
Correct.
can't, because otherwise you won't say anything.
Right. The importance is recognizing that support is very important.
Right.
And wherever that support comes, sometimes that support comes from the places that you least expect it. Or the last person you think that would be a support for you ends up being I needed to hear that today.
Right.
Or I needed that person today.
Well, we're going to get through another holiday.
We are.
And it's going to be different. But we really hope that our discussions help you. Like you said, you're not alone. We want to continue to be here for you. You can reach out to us. I did go to the printer, and we have the new folders on their way. Actually, I received an email last night that for the proofs. So I'm going to be going over that over the weekend. So by right after the first of the year, we'll have the updated version.
Exciting.
And yeah, it's going to be really great because some of the changes that we made include information nationally. So when we do mail these out across the country, when people request them, they have other information, not just exclusive to Pasco County. So we really hope that some of you out there support us. We need some sponsorship, donations, so that we can keep this program going. We have an awesome producer, and he is so gracious, and I really want to thank John with WeBeam TV, because he feels, just like we do, that this is extremely important to bring to the public, even as hard as it is at times for us. Us sitting here, it may look like sometimes it's kind of easy, but by the time we get done, and it's like we take a deep breath, and we did it again, and it's hard at times, but we both feel, I'm sure you do, that the importance of us sharing our stories, so that that you're not alone.
Exactly. And I want to echo what you just said. Yes, we do have, an amazing producer in John, and, his persistence.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
to get this, this platform started, so we are, eternally grateful to WeBeam TV for this. But like Tammy said, please, if you yourself are able to, donate or become a sponsor, if you are aware of people who can sponsor, as willing sponsors, please reach out, do the QR code that Tammy spoke about. because we
John
really-
has shown, we partnered with Kindest to help us raise funds to sponsor the programming. And there's a little story in there. Yeah, it's, we really, and to next year, I mean, we have so many ideas to bring to you, special guests. We're working on also, when we started the logo for this program, we had several other logos that people really liked. So we want to bring T-shirts out, and so people can help us that way. So we've got a lot in the works, and we just really hope everybody has a safe and wonderful holiday season. Even though it's going to be difficult for many of us, know that you're not alone, right?
Like Tammy always says, at the end of our shows, there is always hope in the light of suicide.
There is, and we're gonna continue to bring it to you guys. We are. So, again, we just really wish everybody a happy and safe holiday. Be safe, do the best that you can, and remember, there's always hope.